For the past few months, I've been using the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, and as someone that typically uses Pixel devices 90% of the year, this has been a truly interesting experience to say the least. I've actually never used Nothing devices before, but their 3A series has really made its mark on the Android community, and with Google giving them dedicated screen time at Google I/O, it makes me feel Nothing devices are starting to get the respect they deserve, and I wanted to continue that discussion in this long-term review from a Pixel user's perspective. Immediately, what stands out the most to me, especially as a full-time Pixel user, is Nothing's unique approach to design and software. To me, these are the absolute biggest winners for this device, and when you compare it to similarly priced phones on the market, Nothing offers a truly different flavor of Android that I think many people will come to appreciate. For the design, I'm so used to Google's minimalist, somewhat corporate, largely safe design language for their smartphones, which is totally fine, by the way. They're clearly trying to appeal to the widest majority of people out there, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Nothing goes all out in a drastic, dramatic way, which I think goes so far in differentiating them in the crowded Android space. It's something I really wish Google and more established companies would do more often. Go for a design or add design elements that have something to say and have true character. When it comes to the 3A Pro, I've just never seen a smartphone like this before. Its camera module is absolutely massive, with small, intricate details that show new aspects constantly the longer you look. There's a ton of tiny little bumps, textures, ridges, ribbons, screws, and if you appreciate phone design, you know how rare a look like this is in the market. It's truly beautiful, actually, and people clearly know from a mile away that this phone is different, and that's a powerful statement that very few devices can make today. The design is simply fantastic, and the build materials are pretty good too. It has a plastic frame, which is fine for this price point, and a glass back, which is a nice upgrade from the polycarbonate on last year's model. That said, nothing really crazy here in terms of materials. Really, it's the overall design of this phone, which is one of its strongest aspects that I absolutely love, and huge props to Nothing for their big focus on design with this device. And then on top of this unique look is the software within, and I'd best describe Nothing OS as a Pixel-like experience without all the heavy AI integration and classic Google staples, and depending on the person, this might actually be a better, cleaner experience for you. I know a lot of people don't like AI these days, and with Nothing OS, their overall operating system is very simple. Their approach is completely different, focusing on clean aesthetics and smart little software features and overall software quality, all in a way that still gives Nothing OS its own special identity. Aesthetically, Nothing has added a handful of unique touches like their dot matrix font, first-party Nothing style widgets, and custom alarm, notification, and ringtone sounds that always 100% get some kind of attention when other people are in the room. And of course, there's the glyph interface. To be clear, I absolutely do not think that this is a gimmick under any circumstances. Nothing has gone out of their way to make it both fashionable and functional in a way that I hope they keep expanding on in future iterations. I've talked about these features recently, but you have flip to glyph, which is a fun little interaction where putting your phone face down will silence notifications, but will still inform you of new ones with a flash of the glyph lighting. It can also serve as a progress indicator for apps like Uber, Zomato, or Google Calendar for your upcoming tasks. To take things a step further, I do wonder if the glyph interface will eventually integrate with Android 16's new live update feature, as it seems like a perfectly natural fit here, but that's something we'll just have to wait and see about. And lastly, the glyphs also feature a music visualizer as another fun, quirky little feature where the lights react to the sound of audio coming from your phone, which is a nice touch, plus a lot more glyph-related features are here. When it comes to the core software experience, it's super clean, actually, as it's effectively Pixel UI with those special touches I mentioned earlier, and it's super clean in all the ways that you would expect. There's no bloatware, no crazy over-the-top features that clutter the interface, and the features they do have are smart, subtle, and make this version of Android 15 more useful in its own way. You get in-depth quick settings customization where you can adjust the size of some of the quick settings tiles to either a 1x1, 2x1, or 4x4 size to show more information, which is absolutely awesome. You get a smart app drawer that automatically groups apps into specific folders for better organization. You have the option to add lock screen widgets widgets for quick glanceable information. There's deeply customizable gestures you can set with the double press of a power button to open any app you choose, but also quick access to system actions or app shortcuts as well. We also have a 3-finger swipe screenshots gesture with ChatGPT integration for asking in-depth questions, and to top it all off, Nothing's Essential Space is also an interesting feature, acting as a little hub where you can store audio notes and screenshots to have them organized, analyzed, and transcribed, all at the press of this dedicated Essential Space key. It's a good first attempt, but I will say this iteration is definitely a first-gen concept that will need to be expanded on as time goes by to be truly game-changing, and also, they do need to give users the ability to remap this dedicated Essential Space key. Just simply put, not everyone is going to use it, and therefore, they should give some power back to the users. That said, there are a lot of things I do in fact miss from my Pixel device. Features like now playing, call screening, the quarterly feature drops, and getting a small handful of some Gemini AI features first. Losing access to those are hard to live without, especially once you get used to them. But overall, I think Nothing has hit a sweet spot of interesting features and a minimalist software experience while still not being over bloated or over the top. So design and software are the two most important aspects I've noticed as a Pixel user, but as part of this review, I wanted to cover what parts of the specs you should know about because there is actually a lot to be said here. The phone is powered by the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3, which is a mid-range chip, and for the most part, it's absolutely fine actually for daily tasks. Things like YouTube, Gmail, web browsing, Google Maps, downloading a ton of apps, for example, all are handled perfectly well here. Really, the only performance issues I found was with heavy gaming, as the 3A Pro was just okay at best. In a game like Delta Force Mobile, I'd get hitching and frame rate drops pretty often while also not being able to access the higher graphics settings options. Keep in mind though, this is a mid-range chip as I said, and unless you're going with last year's flagship like the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in the OnePlus 13R for example, this is really the best performance you can expect at this price range. And another issue I found with performance was with the camera UI responsiveness. Trust me, we'll get into the actual camera image quality in a minute, but the actual app itself I think is a little sluggish and needs some work. I'm not sure if this is because of the mid-range chip or some much needed optimization, but I just noticed that compared to the Pixel 9a, things like opening the camera app, managing camera modes, and switching lenses all feel a bit slow on the Nothing Phone 3a Pro as opposed to other devices in its same price range. Otherwise, the rest of the internal specs are absolutely fine here, business as usual. You get a huge 6.7-inch AMOLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate, 1300 nits in high brightness mode, or 3000 nits peak. It's a fine display, but I don't find myself blown away like I feel like I should be with an AMOLED display. Compared to the Pixel 9a, their display seems so much more contrasty, perhaps. I don't know, but the display on the Nothing Phone doesn't really pop to me. It's not a huge deal, as it's still plenty big, vibrant, smooth with that 144Hz refresh rate, especially for the price, so I can't really complain too much here. Now, it's time we talk about the camera because this is probably one of the most surprising parts for me. I've been using this camera exclusively for the past few months, and I've taken it on every trip, multiple events, a ton of new locations, and I'm surprised to say I've really enjoyed the experience much more than another phone in the same price range that I thought I would enjoy better, that being the Pixel 9a. For hardware on the Nothing Phone 3a Pro, we have a 50 megapixel wide, 50 megapixel periscope telephoto, and an 8 megapixel ultra wide lens. Again, I'm basing my comparison on the Pixel 9a here, but I thought the Nothing Phone's photos were consistently sharper, brighter, and had better colors, whereas the Pixel 9a seemed to produce images that are more noticeably washed out and seem a bit softer than I would like them to be, but I think it's important to keep in mind that the Pixel 9a is going for a more realistic image, while the Nothing Phone 3a Pro is extra sharp, extra vibrant, which I think I just naturally like more. Before this, I thought I would automatically prefer the Pixel 9a's legendary camera system, but Nothing's camera processing is artistic in a way that I truly appreciate. And even better, the periscope camera really surprised me, and in regards to zoom capability, it puts the Nothing Phone 3a Pro in a class of its own. Images through that periscope lens were really crisp and highly detailed versus the Pixel 9a that heavily relies on a more digital digital zoom. I find the Pixel's zoomed photos were much softer and almost hazy in their appearance and have a noticeable loss in detail, especially when looking side by side with the 3A Pro. So while I think both cameras will be fine for an everyday point and shoot experience, they both have their own pros and cons. Don't get me wrong, the Nothing Phone 3A Pro is just a clear winner in my book. So, after spending a few months with the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, I have to say I am genuinely surprised. Coming from someone that constantly uses Pixel devices, it's refreshing to see the identity that Nothing has put together here. The bold design and the thoughtfully curated software experience create a device that truly does feel special. While I do miss a lot of the staple Pixel features, the Nothing Phone 3A Pro makes a strong case for itself with a surprisingly capable camera and a design that truly stands out from the crowd. It's a reminder that there are still unique, exciting experiences to be had in the Android world if you're willing to look beyond the usual devices out there. With that said, I'm getting out of here, but please let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of the Nothing Phone 3A Pro? And if you have one, share your experiences down below, as I'm super curious to hear what the Android community is thinking. In the meantime, I'm getting out of here. Until the next one, this has been Jordan Floyd with 9to5 Google. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.